So the lion approaches. The lion comes coming in really, really fast, and this one-horned creature just gets freaked out. This one-horned creature starts running around all over the place, and the people are like, "Oh God, okay, this lion has detected the scent of these 3 rams who are in their camp, because these 3 rams are interested because these 3 people had just come back on this one-horned creature, Unisauri." They'd come back during this thunderstorm, and they'd been around the camp, and they just said hi to their family. The rams were finally getting the crabs off of them. Little baby crabs were crawling all over the rams, after this little skirmish with a bull, and they'd gone back down to the beach. But now they'd just gotten together. The people, the villagers, had come in, said hi to their family. They were going to sit down and share their story of crossing the plateau. And then the lion comes in. The people are like, "Oh, this is the lion who." It smells these rams, and every other day this lion comes and chases one ram out into the woods, out into the hills, towards the plateau. And this time, though, there's 3 rams. So the people are like, "Well, what are the lion going to do this time?" We'll have to hold off on the story for a second. Here we got the situation with the lion, and the rams are freaking out. Like, baby ram's getting chased by a lion. Oh no! And then there's 2 females and 1 male. One of the females rams gets chased out into the hills. People are thinking this is going to be interesting here because it's usually just one baby ram shows up on their shore every other day, and this time there's 3 rams, and one of them is getting chased into the woods, and the other 2 are hanging out there with them now. And so they gather back around. Still a big thunderstorm overhead. It's kind of clearing a little bit, but you can hear it here. I'm in a real thunderstorm right now, so I had to record this. I was seeing it happening, and the thunderstorm showed up. So all right, time to tell the story. And so they all gather around the fire now for this story of the adventure of these 3 villagers who had left. To go follow these rams. Every other day there's a ram, so they have scouts in the village to, every other day they're tracking these rams. Well, this time, these 3, it started with 4 of them. So they sit down, they all, light up their pipes, they have a good story. And you can see that story there on the other videos. So they say some prayers before they start the story. They say some prayers for their lost companion, Crazy Joe. And Crazy Joe was known as Crazy Joe before he was even... Crazy Joe was actually the one who got on the back of Unisauri first, and was the one, because he was the one craziness to hop on top of this creature. The other guy's like, yeah, we got to rescue Unisauri, correct? Remember from the old story. Unisauri is when they're underneath the plateau and they're in the swamp, and the ram they'd been following had been sunken down into the swamp, but they had been flying away by the hawks, and then they're so the 3 people kind of recount the story of losing Crazy Joe, because Crazy Joe had this idea, let's just rescue this one-horned creature. We later find out that her name is Unisauri, and so he hops on this one-horned creature's back, big mama bear hug, whispering to the one-horned creature, like, hey, we're going to rescue you from these gators. So the 3 people end up telling the story what happened to Crazy Joe. He got taken in by the gator people or eaten by the gators, one of the 2, because they tell the story of these wolves that they encountered in the woods, strange wolves they'd never met before, that were communicating by scratching on the sides of the trees and all this stuff. But then they also run into these upright gator people who seem to be just kind of having this funny little party show of gator on unicorn here. Not a unicorn. No, this is more like a dinosaur. Remember, this is not a horse creature with a horn here. This is more like a rhinoceros or like a triceratops creature, just with 1 horn, and then shielding from the plating, like a triceratops would have. So her name is Unisauri, and we'll learn about more of her story here later on. So the people are saying prayers for the safety of Crazy Joe, that he gets taken in by the gator people, he learns their ways, and can come back with them with some new knowledge about what is going on with the plateau. And meanwhile, they're getting the report, the lowdown from the people who had returned with Unisauri. So these people are telling them how, we had gotten into the woods and we've been surrounded by these wolves that were these striped and almost... they're not spackled wolves. They're not like polka dotted at all, but they have little dots amongst their stripes that are almost like a Morse code pattern there. And it's on a black. They're black wolves, but their stripes and spots are these glowing green and purple colors. And but they have this great intelligence of the forest that the people are trying to tell their fellow villagers. They're like, hey, they're deeper into the woods. There's all these creatures, and they seem to have this language that that isn't the same as our languages here with our bulls, and on the shore with they got smaller crabs and they say we met these sea creatures out on the other side after we lost Crazy Joe, and basically it was a co-joint rescue there where the people had rescued the Unisauri from the gator people, and Unisauri took them to the other side of the plateau, where they witnessed this business meeting by this goat king guy, this goat king with this seagoatking. It's a flying goat with flippers, and these flippers kind of twirl around in this triangulation pattern, almost at the rate of a bee. And so it's got this it's almost like a buzzing flying fish goat, and he's got this trident with these snakes wrapping around it, and they tell him the story of this business meeting between these jaguars and this goat king, who was flying up to the side of the plateau, and then and they see this a rainbow jaguar up there who's really two jaguars. It's a twin jaguar, so there's the two sides, and they see that at the end of the business meeting the jaguar is no longer a rainbow jaguar, it's just one jaguar, because the jaguar separates, and one goes out into the center of the plateau, goes down back into the plateau, while the other one comes down the side of the plateau. And then they have this business meeting on the beach after they meet these people from up north. So this is really the meat of the story that we're getting into now, because the people are saying, hey, look, we met the northerners, and they're kind of kooky, weird people. They tell these stories about how they're from the future, but we're not sure if they are or not. But they land with this disc that sort of flips as the business meeting is starting on the top of the plateau. The goat king and the jaguar and the ram are up there. The first ram, right? Because there was one ram that had made it across 2 days ago, or over that 2-day period. And so really the business meeting is about what's going to happen with the rams, is what we find out, because every day there's a ram that gets escorted, through putting on deer antlers with its and they following a jaguar, and the jaguars escort him. And saved by the hawks a couple times, and so the what happens is the ram starts starts flying down the side of the plateau. The hawks rescue, and then they come down and they have a little meeting on the east side of this whole continent, where there's it's a different ecology. The sea creatures are much larger. They're the people are telling the stories of these seahorses. There's these seahorses that are just they're coming out of the sea, and they got big old heads, and they can fly. There's flying seahorses. There's blue creatures of the air, and there's red creatures of the land here. And they're saying that we have all these little baby crabs on our shore, and they don't get very big, and they go through the mating cycle, and they're just mostly coming out of the sand, and they're not big crabs. But on the other side, there's huge big mama crabs, and they're saying these big mama crabs have a lot of clout with the Sea King. And so there's just they don't see the Sea King on the west side of the coast. They don't see giant crabs on the west side of the coast. And at this time in the story, as the people are talking, they know the two people who are telling the story. They realize that Unisauri has wandered off toward the north, and they realize, well, we're here with our family. She escorted us home. She said she'd like to hang out for a while out here with us, but she didn't really say she had many plans, so I'm sure she'll be back. So she had wandered up north, and then they start telling the people more about what they find out about what the northerners, because so after the decision is made with the jaguars and with the goat king, that little recap from the end of that. So they end up deciding that they have to maintain this initiation process of with the rams to tell the story of the forest with all of the creatures of the forest. Of a ram is going to come out every time, but it ended, and so this is why the people are telling them. The people are speculating. They know the three people who had returned are speculating. They know exactly why there's 3 rams now, is because the jaguars have convinced the goat king to be like, hey man, 1 ram's not going to cut it here. You can't tell a story about a herd of deer with 1 ram with, some sticks on their coming out of their horns. But the other thing we find out about this business means that there's scorpion people up north, and the scorpion people are not liked down south because we find out from the jaguar people that they're the ones who are the ones responsible for killing the last deer. And we don't know the story on that yet, but we also hear from the people who are from up north that they're going to come back and they're going to start reintroducing deer to the plateau and to the swamp and presumably the surrounding forest of the people. And the people they know, they've made it to the desert up north, and then they end up they occasionally have heard legends of deers in the desert. The jaguar people are, and the both the lions, the cheetahs, the jaguar, all the predatory cats had been in this conflict for a long time about who had killed the deer, and the jaguars were always taking the blame because the lions are supposed to be the protectors of the whole jungle, and the lions end up blaming. Or people say that the lions have laid the blame on the jaguars, and the jaguars finally say, no, look, it was the scorpion people, and it's a good thing the scorpion people are up north, and that that they're doing their thing up there with these other people to have this crazy spaceship that flew into the land, but so the outcomes of this business meeting are getting told to the villagers, like, hey, expect things to be changing right now because there's now these three rams up there, and I'm gonna have to catch up with this story here for you all in a little bit.